Yeah.
With high functioning codependency, with people listening, if they're like, what does that really mean? Like, we get
Yeah.
it, we got the description, but let's talk, if we can, a little bit about the traits. Like,
Yes.
what is the behavior in our everyday lives? What does it actually look like? Because I feel like theoretically it's one thing, but what does it look like? I mean, the number one thing is feeling responsible for fixing other people's problems,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So,
That sounds so familiar. I mean, that feels like familiar in most women I know.
yep, same. Hence why I wrote this book.
Right.
Same. Because we do feel responsible
Yeah.
for that. And being mothers, if you're a mother, it's complicated
Right.
because we are tasked with being fully responsible for kids until we're not. And then you're like, oh, how do I do that? So that's actually very challenging, but possible, of course.
Say, can you
Um,
just repeat that one sentence again?
sure.
The first.
That with mothers and
Yeah.
children, we are tasked, it's like our mandate to be fully responsible for them
Mm-hmm.
in every way
Yeah.
until we're not.
Right.
And nobody tells us how to go from full on
Mm-hmm.
to this is appropriate, let them make some decisions and then move into something else. And then now I should not be paying their rent when they're 30. Oh, should I not? Well, I can't let them get evicted. No, you can actually. And you
Right.
need to, because if not, they're never going to work out their money shit. Like, hello, stop.
Right. Right.
But I feel I've seen this in my practice,
Yeah.
but feeling overly responsible for far too long and not going into the next phase, right? Because we have different seasons of life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this later, your adult relationship, because all my kids are grown, I've got 7 grandbabies. It's like
Wow.
your relationship to your grown children
Yeah.
is different. And a lot of times with high functioning codependency and with parents who can't stop parenting, what we're really doing, even though this is so painful, but it's true, is that we are inserting ourselves. We are centering the other person's life and situations on ourselves.
Wow.
And that can just be in feeling like you have the answers, right? So another trait is auto advice giving.
Mm.
This is just
Yeah.
like anywhere. I was completely indiscriminate. I did not care. It could be a stewardess, it could be my hairdresser, anybody.
Yeah.
Anyone had a problem, I'd be like, hello, I have the answer. I have
Have you
so much
tried
to share.
this? Have you
I
tried
have,
that? Yeah.
I have so many good ideas. I've got a great oncologist. I have read a book. I'm Googling it right now. Like,
Yep.
and if you're wondering, if you're
It's hard
listening or
not
watching,
to. It's hard not to want to give advice.
it is, but we need to unpack why and unpack the cost.
Mm.
Because here's the thing, if there wasn't a cost, there'd be nothing wrong with it.
Right. Right.
But there is.
Mm-hmm.
And the cost is to your relationship. Because when you are auto advice giving all the time, you are really trampling on the autonomy of the people in your life.
Yeah.
And it's much more loving
Mm-hmm.
to say, even to a kid, a 6-year old, you can say, what do you think you should do?
Mm.
And then shut up and listen.
This is like coaching 101, and I think there's a lot of bad reps for coaching because people think it's about just giving advice, guiding the person. And true coaching is exactly what you just said.
Yep.
It's listening, sometimes repeating back,
Yep.
asking, having the person find their own answer.
Yes.
That's coaching, and it's hard to
It
do.
is. And it's not to say, listen, if your best friend is going through something, it's not to say we never give our opinion or say, hey, I went through something similar. This
Hmm.
helped me. Maybe it'll help you. It's not that we never do that. It's just that when you're in HFC,
Hmm.
the first thing you do,
Right.
that person's anxiety, their pain, their suffering is so intolerable to us that we
Mm.
can't even sit with it for a second. We just need to tie it up in a neat bow. I tell this story in the book about where this concept sort of was born for me. When I was in my 20s, one of my sisters was in an abusive relationship. She was literally living in a shack in the woods with no running water, no electricity.
Oh
She
my.
was an active alcoholic, and this guy was abusive and doing crack. Okay.
Okay.
So you don't need to embellish that experience because
Right.
that's a 5 alarm fire for an HFC who is over functioning, hyper responsible, hyper independent. I mean, my life, even though I was so busy in my life at that time,
Yeah.
it's all I could think about was like, how am I getting her out of this horrible situation?
Right.
So I would talk to her, I would feel terrible. I would talk to my therapist, cry my eyes out. So I was
Mhm.
talking to my therapist, Bev, and I was like, I've done everything. I don't know what else to do. What am I going to do? And she
Mm.
just looked at me very compassionately and she said, Terri, let me ask you something. What makes you think you know what your sister needs to learn and how she needs to learn it in this life?
Wow. That's deep. It's like zooming out to see the soul's purpose and the soul's journey and saying, that's not mine to fix or even guide, really, sometimes.
Right. It's not my decision, but that was hard to hear,
Right.
right? Because I thought, well, it's obvious to anyone who's normal that her living without a fucking water tank is not how she needs to learn this lesson.
Right.
And my therapist said, I said, I think we can agree on that. She was
Hmm.
like, I don't think we can, Tara,
Wow.
because I'm not God
Mm.
and I don't know, but do you know what's going on for you? And I was like, no, obviously. So clue me in what's going on. And she was like, you've worked really hard to create a harmonious life.
Mm.
And your sister's dumpster fire is messing with your peace. And
Mm.
you really want your pain to end.
Wow.
I was like, holy shit, you are not wrong. That is
Right.
accurate. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I want it to be cleaned up because I know how to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got all the answers. Just why doesn't she just let me help her? In the end, what my therapist said, the thing that actually changed my mind and had me step back and draw a boundary with my sister is she said, Terri, I'm not saying you shouldn't save your sister.
Mm.
I'm saying you can't, that
Mm.
it's an impossible task and that it
Wow.
won't last if
Hmm.
you get her out of there because you do it. So in the end, I step back, I say, hey, but if you ever want to get out of this horrible situation, I'll always be your person. Less than 9 months later, she calls me. Okay, are you still my person? Of course I am. Getting in my car. Helped her. She went back to school. She got into recovery herself. And
Great.
instead of her youngest sister wearing the cape and
Mm.
being the hero of her story, she got to be the hero of her own story.
Beautiful.
And that's love.
That is love. Wow.